The French Revolution, Section 3, Radical Days, so events that occurred during this phase, why the radicals got rid of the monarchy, the Committee of Public Safety, their purpose, and the result of them taking over, how the excesses of the convention led to another form of government, and again moving in a more moderate direction, and then how French people were affected by all of these changes that are taking place in the revolution. So first of all, we got to go back to the king fleeing or attempting to flee Paris, and the way that's interpreted. It's interpreted as him turning his back on the revolution. On top of that, a largely amateur, untrained French army is losing to the Prussians, which is arguably at the time one of the most powerful militaries. And the French people interpret this to mean that the King of France is working against the French and the French Revolution and helping the Prussians instead of, thinking about it logically. But again, this irrational thought is kind of at play here. And so because of this, they execute the king as a traitor to the revolution. The other thing is they want universal suffrage. They want all adult men to be able to vote, not just those who have property. And they want to get rid of a constitutional monarchy and replace it with a republic that would be similar to either the Roman Republic or the United States Republic. So, and the other thing is they want to get rid of everything that's old. They replace the calendar. They view religion as outdated and superstitious, and so they want to radically transform French society. The other thing that's going on is the radicals are really facing, well, the French people, not just the radicals, all of France. There's lots of internal arguments over what direction the French Revolution should go. So internally, there's not agreement and there's fighting amongst the French people. I kind of illustrated that when we talked about rich versus poor, city versus rural, men versus women, left versus right. So there's all these internal conflicts. And then on top of that, most of Europe is freaked out about this, and so they begin to interfere, and so now they're facing external attacks as well. So in order to respond to these, they create the Committee of Public Safety. They give this committee absolute power, and essentially what this committee needs to do is keep France safe and prepare for the worst, all-out war, internal civil war, whatever it might be. The leader of this committee is Robespierre, and he gets the reputation for being the incorruptible. In other words, he's not going to stray from the values of the revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. And he's going to take whatever measures he needs to fight against these counter-revolutionaries, these threats from inside France and threats outside of France. And so he feels he's justified in doing whatever. And he really believes that the use of terror, scaring the pants out of people, is the way to keep them true to the ideals. So as a result, what you get is the guillotine. They're going to resist anybody who resists revolution or writes against the revolution, anyone who's not fully committed to the revolution. You get a real quick trial and usually the loss of your head. So there's 300-some thousand that are arrested, and of that 300,000, somewhere around 17,000 get their heads chopped off. So I shouldn't say all these people get a hasty trial and then their heads chopped off. And when you look at who loses their heads, it's really not the old order. It's all kinds of people, but predominantly it's the people who are members of the Third Estate are the ones who are most impacted by this. Eventually what's going to happen is, because they're so quick to judge people as being guilty and chopping people's heads off, sooner or later the people turn against the Committee of Public Safety, and they themselves end up either being assassinated or executed. So now that all this craziness and chaos and killing has taken place, France wants more stability. So they move to a 5-man directory, a 2-house legislature, and it's going to be kind of somewhere in between a monarchy and a republic, or a constitutional monarchy and a republic, but it's more centered down the road. The problem with this is that it's not given a tremendous amount of power, but it can be very dictatorial. So in other words, these people can kind of do whatever they want in terms of demanding things. It's just really hard for them to enact any kind of real change. They're continuing to face all kinds of problems: debt, hunger, internal and external threats. And so it just doesn't take very long for this thing to kind of fall apart. The other thing that's happening is you get an influx of people who had left France during the early stages and the radical stage of the French Revolution. They are coming back, and they want to return back to a constitutional monarchy where they saw that France had less chaos, less craziness. Things weren't great, but they were better than the days of the Reign of Terror. When we look at how does this impact the French people, already you should probably figure out that France was turned upside down, 3 constitutions in 6 years. But the other thing is you see these things that represent the French Revolution: liberty caps, the tricolor, the red, white, and blue, the title of citizen, which goes to equality and fraternity. These things become ingrained in French society, and they're also a symbol of pride. You also see French nationalism becoming more cohesive and better defined. So you've got Les Marseillaise, which is the national anthem, kind of gets going. And French people tend to associate the symbols of the revolution with being French. And so they become one and the same. And that's why Bastille Day is considered to be kind of the French birthday of modern France. Now the other thing is when you look at the art of the day, that can tell us an awful lot. Remember, they don't have movies, they don't have photographs, and so they're capturing things in art. And so when you look at the visual chronicles, you see this revolutionary spirit on the far right, where they're taking these revolutionary figures like Marat and Robespierre and Napoleon, and they're kind of capturing them in a really romanticized, patriotic way. Now, on the flip side, you also have these people who are capturing the realism, the brutality of it all. In the middle is a painting of Kronos devouring his children, and Kronos kind of represents the revolution, and the children are the leaders of the revolution and how it consumed them. But the other thing that happens is it's not all bad. You see public school systems being formed and paid for by the state. You also see the country of France beginning a social welfare system to take care of these people who were hurt or injured or were casualties of the French Revolution. And also because of the French ideals, they're one of the first nations to abolish and get rid of slavery.